Many scientists, myself included, are people of faith, and they see their scientific work and their scientific understanding as being in complete harmony with their religious beliefs. But that's entirely different from arguing that religion or faith itself is testable by the means of science. It simply isn't.
Think of is in debating John Calvert, head of the ID Network. He always brings up this letter from 40 Nobel laureates about evolution, which says there is no evidence for design. And of course, that's not true. I mean, there's no evidence for design and purpose to the universe, and that's just not a scientific statement. And if scientists make those kind of statements, it naturally sort of encourages the fear of science. And so I think we have to be particularly sensitive that science is threatened.
I will just second your comments. I think they're very wisely chosen.
Because you know, everybody knows that a Cadillac or a sewing machine is a combination of matter with extrinsic information put into it. The iron and the steel and the plastic and all the rest of it, if I dare say that a Cadillac has plastic in it, but if it does, then all those things are put together with the help of information which does not reside in the machine. That is, all machines prove that you've got to have an engineer to make them. If anybody will stand up and say to me that a machine requires no engineer, then I say, dear sir, do you know that matter is not purposeful? Matter doesn't have concepts like a Cadillac. Well, they turn around and say to you, they arose by chance. Well, then I say, what you're saying is this. This is for the students amongst you. What you're saying is this, that teleonomy, which is the correct term for purpose, matter itself is the term ateleonomic. It doesn't have purpose in it, it doesn't think, it doesn't have concepts, but it'll take a concept, it'll store a concept, it'll store a machine, but it can't make them. So you've got to put in information from outside, which is of course the reason why I say that if you find matter, which we know from the 3 laws of thermodynamics, particularly from the second law, that there's no concept in it, that is, machine concept in it, it has other concepts like the concept of valency. If you say that, then you've said immediately, well, okay, if matter does make machines, you've got to have an engineer to put the information onto the matter to make it a machine. But machines don't form spontaneously. You are, among other things, a machine. It's like people do. And one of them said, where did that come from? Where did this machine come from? So the other said, well, according to best evolutionary theory, the molecules of the rock combined with one another and produced all the possible shapes which molecules of rock can produce and produced this machine. Well, some of them didn't like that idea. They said, that's all very well for the machine itself, but you don't mean to tell us that the manual in the dashboard was produced by the paper of which it's made, do you? You don't think that all those instructions with all that information, the millions and millions of bytes of information there, came that way, do you? Well, they said, we could at a pinch believe that the machine arose that way, because after all biology arose that way, didn't it? And that would be a bit more complicated than the machine. Here, it's complicated enough. Charging the batteries from the sun's a real fine idea, isn't it? But the manual, we can't believe that English, the code that we've decoded with our machines, we don't believe that that arose by the Darwinian process. Argument with Huxley and Wilberforce settled once and for all that chance will do what a creator does if you give it time. And here's the argument, which is still valid today. Let your typewriters be typed upon by the apes, and let them go. So Bishop said, okay, let them go. Now, before time quite ran out, almost at the end of it, we look at what they've typed. Well, he said, don't you see that where T, which is time, equals infinity, P, which is probability, equals 1. That is, if you give time enough for a reaction that's going on, typing, then you will, with certainty, get anything and everything out. You just let it go long enough, and you'll get out the 23rd Psalm. But the bishop said, the 23rd Psalm was written by David. And here you're saying it wasn't written by David. Oh, no, I'm not, said Huxley. What I'm telling you is that chance can do anything that you can do if you give it time enough. That's the nature of the probability formula. The Earth now is very many billions of years old, and the reactions that make you have been going on all this time. If you give time enough, just as your Carl Sagan says, life will arise. Therefore, they've been listening, and they've been looking. They sent labs to Mars and to Venus to have a look and see how life was coming along. That's a little lever then, which when you push it to the right, are you with me? When you push it to the right, the lever under the keyboard, it types in like an ordinary typewriter, and you can type a letter with it. Okay, it types in, but it's irreversible. And if you make a mistake, you have to scratch and pick with a scratch and pick method, you know, to get the thing out, or type X-tip over it or something like that, calcium sulfate, so that you cover up your mistake. But it doesn't remove the letter stays there, because the thing types in, but not out. Now, with my new super typewriter, you push the lever, you push the lever to the left, not to the right, to the left, and then you have this super machine that when the ape types on it, A comes down from his beautiful little head, down through his arms, onto the A, goes into the machine. Okay? Everything normal, everything in order, everything under control. But when he lifts his thumb and lets the key up, the A that he's typed untypes itself, rises without a trace, with no trace from the paper, goes back through the machine, up through his thumb, back into his head. Now, so this machine types and untypes in equilibrium. Just like all the chemical reactions of your body. They'll type in and they'll type out. Now, ladies and gentlemen, how long would Huxley have had to allow his apes to type to get out the 23rd Psalm on a machine like that? How long? He'd never get it. Because you see, after you've typed 1 nanosecond, you've untyped in 1 nanosecond as much as you've typed. If you type 1 billion years, you've got no further forward. Because every letter you type in types out. It's completely reversible. You can't do it. There lies the error. That's law of programming. And programming is the function of the genetic code. And the genetic code does not, being full of information or surprise effects, ever arise alone. Now, you see what Huxley had done and how he'd swindled. It's what we call sleight of hand. Nobody guessed that the typewriters that he'd used were really, are you listening? They were really creation machines. They allowed you to go in, and they didn't allow you to go out, because they're machines. His probability formula will only work where it's irreversible. It won't work where it's reversible. Now, Prigogine, 2 years ago, got the Nobel Prize for seeing that.